Welcome everybody. We're going to take a few minutes and talk about how we could increase clarity in our course structure. And there's many reasons we want to do this. First and foremost, primarily, it's going to make it easier for the students to succeed in our classes if it's clear to the students what they need to do. And so I put together a list of key takeaways here of what you're going to learn in this video. And we'll go over those key takeaways first, then we'll kind of see some of the examples of how I structure my classes. And just a little bit of background about me. My name's Todd McLeod. I'm tenured faculty in the business division at Fresno City College. I'm multidisciplinarian. Though I'm tenured in information systems, I've also taught in business and I've also taught in computer science, both at the college level and the university level, both to undergraduates and graduate students. And I first started teaching online in 1997 at California State University, Fresno. So I was one of the first faculty out there to teach online. So I've had a tremendous amount of experience teaching online. And I've also helped Fresno City College sort of, get their online instruction going in the early 2000s. Rio Waller and I, we founded the online teacher training program together, and we taught in that program. And that was one of the initial programs to teach faculty how to teach online in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. So that's just a little bit about my background. I've studied online education at Saracoso Community College, also at UC San Diego Extension. So University of California, San Diego Extension, they had some online education about online education. I went through that. All right, so without further ado, having clarity in your course structure is super important. First takeaway is that you want the students to focus on learning the course material. So whatever you're teaching, that's what you want your students putting effort into figuring out. You want them to figure out the material that they're there to learn, and you want to minimize the amount of effort that they have to spend figuring out how to learn that material. Okay, so important distinction there. You want them to focus on learning the material they're there to learn, and you want to minimize the amount of time that the students have to figure out how do I learn this material. So you don't want them to spend their time. You want them to spend as little time as possible learning how to learn the course material. So what does that mean? That means if they come into your class and they're confused and things are always changing and it's hard to figure out, they got to spend a lot of time figuring out your system about how to learn in this class. So you want your class to be as simple as possible, as consumable as possible, so students could come in and really quickly understand what they need to do to succeed in your class. Okay, so clarity. You want the students to focus on learning the course material. That's one of our key takeaways. And we'll see how I've implemented that in some of my classes coming up. You also want to decrease your workload as the instructor, right? Because, there's good ways and less good ways in which you could be spending your efforts helping students. And so you want to minimize things which are just route and mundane and routine and, having to click things over and over and over yourself. You want to minimize your own workload as an instructor. And so you could structure your online classes in a way that creates a lot of work for yourself, or you could structure your online classes in a way that decreases the amount of work, right, in administrative stuff, and that will allow you to focus putting your efforts into areas where you're more helpful to the students, as opposed to, continually having to change the date on 100 assignments, right, which is kind of mundane and Byzantine work. So decreasing the instructor workload. That's one of the goals, one of the takeaways, one of the kind of things you want to keep in your mind when you're building an online class, right? Like, how do I decrease ridiculous work? And so you want to keep that at the forefront of your mind when you're building an online class. So decreasing student confusion, having a clearer course, is going to also decrease your workload. Because if students are confused, you're going to have to spend, like, if your course is, not structured clearly, you're going to have to spend time going, no, this is what you're supposed, another email, and like, you got to, no, this is what you're, so if they're confused, if the students are confused, they're going to be asking a lot of questions, and that's going to create more work for you. But if you're successful in creating a clear course, then when students come into the class, they will have clarity. And you won't get those questions of confusion that you have to deal with over and over and over endlessly. And so that could be frustrating both for the students and the teacher. So that's one of the ways you could decrease your workload, is by making sure your course is as clear as possible. And then you also want to increase, so these are some of the ways you decrease your workload. You also want to increase the ease of replication. So every semester, you kind of got to roll your course over into the next semester, right? Like replicate it inside Canvas. And so the place that you do that, I'll show you, right, in case you aren't aware of it. But when it rolls over, you want to decrease the amount of touching you have to do to get that class live again. And so there's ways that you could increase your workload on that, and there's ways you could decrease your workload on that. So again, this goal of decreasing your workload. How little do you need to change to get your course up and running again? And so simple syllabus, the college has been pushing that, and that's actually a great thing because it makes sure that you are, one, compliant with how your syllabus needs to read. Why would you not do that? Then if something's wrong with the syllabus, it's kind of like on the institution. You don't have to worry about it, right? Like, oh, whatever policy wasn't in there, I was using simple syllabus. That's on you. Like, why would you not use simple syllabus? And then also, simple syllabus just kind of rolls over every semester. So that's another way you could keep it rolling. There's also infinite ways to structure a course. So that's also an important takeaway to realize. Like, there's infinite ways to structure a course. And it's your choice, right? Academic freedom. But because of that, I really encourage you to focus on simplicity and clarity. And so just holding that concept in your mind, like, bringing that as a goal for when you build an online class, like, how do I make this as simple and clear as possible for the students? If you're thinking about that, you're going to be more likely to achieve that. And so one of the ways you could create simplicity and clarity for students is to create consistent weekly routines. So you don't want to have the students do too much figuring out during the first week, and you certainly don't want to have the students do too much figuring out every week, right? Like and I've seen online classes where, like, week 1 we're doing all this stuff, and then week 2 and it's totally different in week 2, and then it's totally different in week 3. And every week the students are having to spend a tremendous amount of time on learning how to learn the course material. They're like, what's going on this week? I'm confused. And they're emailing the instructor and coming to office hours and calling the instructor. And they aren't focusing on the course material, learning the course material. They're focusing on how to learn, right? They're learning how to learn in this crazy structured class. And it's frustrating for everybody. And the professor and instructor is like, why don't you get it? Week 2, it's clear. It's in this 4-page document what you need to do. And the students are like, come on, it changes every week. And so you really want sort of that consistent weekly routine, right? Like, establish in week 1, like, what you're going to do in every week, and then just do that in every week with, like, small changes. Like, what you do in week 1 should be as much as possible like what you do in every other week. And yes, there are instances where there's changes, but it's like that change should be like, and in addition, this week we have an essay, right? We don't have an essay every week. This week we do, and here it is, right? Like, it should be really clear. And but you want that consistent weekly routine. So the next thing you want to do with students in online classes is provide frequent and regular, I guess that's kind of redundant, regular and small, maybe frequent, regular, and small, frequent, regular, and small, frequent, regular, and small amounts of work, right? So you want them to keep getting small wins. If they have like massive mountains they're going to climb, that can be discouraging. It doesn't create forward momentum. That's so big. I don't want to have to do that 20-page paper. Right? But if you're like, write me a paragraph, 3 to 8 sentences, right? Like, okay, I can knock that out in 10 minutes. It's very consumable. It's very doable. But you got 10 of those, right? Well, do 3 today, do 3 tomorrow, do 3 the next day. You got 1 left for Thursday. And so those small little wins creates forward momentum, creates a sense of progress, creates wins for the students, helps them feel successful. And so, go for that. And that keeps them engaged. And so creating frequent, regular, small amounts of work, small steps, not big steps, create small wins, and that creates momentum for the students. and keeps them engaged. So that's something I recommend. And then include videos for each step in the learning process, and you'll see how that works, right? But every time a student comes to a new thing, there's a video, you know, and it's like, you're like, here's the introduction to what we're doing in this thing. And then for each video you know, have for like an assignment, like here's how you do this assignment, you could also create a video showing the solution to the assignment. And so you could determine when and where and how you make those available. But, you know, having those videos is great, because then when students are like, I'm stuck on this assignment, or I turned it in, why did I only get 70%? You can say, well, here's the video of a perfect solution. And they're like, oh, great, thanks. And they watch the video. And so when you create an assignment, create the introduction of the assignment, create the solution for the assignment. And then, you know, you keep track of both of those. And whenever you need to send somebody the solution for the assignment, you got it. It's right there. It's ready to go. So create videos for every step in the learning process. I had some other thought I wanted to include, but just slipped out of my mind. I didn't get enough sleep last night. And then you want to name things well when you name things. And so names should be self-explanatory. So in coding and programming, when you choose a variable name, you know, you want the name to explain itself. You don't want people to have to go research, like, what is this variable doing, right? Likewise, you want the name of whatever you're putting into the online course to explain itself. And so, for example, just to illustrate this point right here, right? Faculty share video overview, clarity in course structure. Like, you know what you're going to find there, you know? And I'm not going to go up here and compare this to any of the other ones. You could do that on your own, right? But I don't know what the other people named, like their lecture, their video. But lecture is even kind of like word choice, important, you know? Lecture is a little bit intimidating and like, it's a lecture, right? But video overview, you know, like, okay, I need an overview. Overview is kind of like, it signifies short. And okay, I want to see what's going on. Give me that overview, right? But it's very clear what I named this, and it's also enticing, right? Because words matter. And so name things well. Names should be self-explanatory, and names should be enticing and even exciting, right? Like, let's make the learning process and even fun. And, you know, let's make it exciting and fun. And so I sent, you know, an email to my students welcoming them to class. Let me see if I could just find it here. And so here is the email welcoming students to my CIT 15 class. I'm just about to drag it over. Hello, everyone. This is exciting. You can now embark on a great adventure learning about the amazing world of computers. Our CIT 15 course is now live. You can begin learning in the course material and doing assignments right now. Log into Canvas at your convenience and get an early start on our class. See you in class. Sincerely, and who's this coming from? Because some people won't know. Your instructor, Todd McLeod. Right? So try to answer all of the questions like before they're asked. And, you know, so that minimizes your workload and makes things simple. So the main takeaway is simplify, 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 right? Create that consistency in weekly routines and try to hold that every week. And and then if you want to get screen recording software, what I'm using to record this right here is OBS. And OBS, you can find OBS at OBS Project. It's free. And you record and it makes an MP4, and you can watch tutorials on YouTube about how to, you know, set your settings. And the audio sync here might not be perfect. That's something I'm working out. My lips might not be in time with the voice. I know it's pretty close. I'll have to watch this, see how it turned out. But it's great. And the video capture of me looks amazing because I have an amazing camera. And this is a Canon 80D, 80D. You could get a Canon 90D. And I'll just make a note of that. Camera equipment. Camera that I use. It's a Canon 90D, and the lens, very nice, okay? And I think it's L series, not cheap. But I like photography. It's a hobby of mine, and so I bought this really nice lens, and I've got a pretty good camera, and it cranks out amazing video. And you want to get a Canon because Canon will allow you to stream from it. A lot of DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, they don't stream. It's hard to get them to stream. But Canon just released some software like pretty recently in the last 6 months that allows you to stream from your Canon. So pretty amazing. So those are the takeaways. That's already a little bit of a longer video. I'm going to stop this video here, and we're going to have a part 2. And in the part 2, we'll walk through and see some of my how I structure my classes. See you in the next video.